I just answered a response on one of my videos about this. But I think that I'm probably confusing everyone. What's going on with that? Basically, why I think that people should either go get a diagnosis or at the same time equally valid getting a diagnosis. Well, first of all, there's avoidant thinking 101 is to have two simultaneous, seemingly opposing thoughts at the same time. That is how avoidants work. But also why? What is the point of getting a diagnosis in the first place? What are the benefits to do it or to not? In a nutshell, if you are wondering and you're just sort of like stuck on the idea, do I have it or do I not? Go to a doctor. Probably most of the time you won't have it. And that's a good thing. That means that there's some other treatment that you can take and do, and your life is going to be better quicker. But the other half of it is that really these labels don't matter at all. It's not like you're going to get extra brownie points because, you've got these letters behind your name. You've got an official diagnosis. So what I really hope people focus on is not, do I have this thing? Because that's useless. It doesn't do anything for you. It's utterly worthless. It's not like there's some special club, believe me, especially the avoidants, that we're hanging out and, talking to each other or something like that. You don't get benefits in any way, shape, or form by having this label. What you should focus on is trying to find something that makes things better for you. There it is. So, if you're looking for an identity, probably you're not avoidant, because most avoidant people have a really strong sense of self. Again, as opposed to, it's almost opposite of borderline. Borderline people, I think I got a cat coming. Anyway, borderline people, I heard a description, it was kind of genius, that they said, if you're borderline, it's kind of like being a jelly bean without the gel inside, so it's just the shell, and there's nothing there unless you've got somebody verifying what you're doing and giving you an identity. If you need an identity, probably not avoidant, because avoidant people really know who they are, and they are very aware of the completely sort of crazy difference between how they perceive themselves and how they would perceive anybody else, and how others perceive them, and their belief of how others perceive them. And they really get that there's a difference there, and they know who they are, and they know what they like, they know what their abilities are. I'm really shaking this up, sorry. Anyway, so the label avoidant and the diagnosis avoidant does nothing. It's the starting point. And the reason why it was really great for quite a few avoidant people, myself and others that I know, is because it gave you a starting point. It's not the end to get this diagnosis. It's where you can go from here that matters. You get a diagnosis, you know that, come on, keep going, that regular therapy is not going to work for you. That you can't have the standard expectation that you're going to, finish college by age 22 and find your partner by age 25 and be married and have kids by age 30. That can happen for avoidant people. It's incredibly rare. obviously, if somebody wants me. Anyway, so that's the thing. If you need to get a diagnosis to go forward and find a way to figure out how to live your life the best way possible, and you just have to have that in order to say, okay, I can't do this and I can't do that, and I've got to find some other way. Then the diagnosis is fantastic and awesome and extremely effective. If you're thinking once you get the diagnosis, okay, I can just stop, then it's a waste. It's an absolute waste. And if you think that you have it, but you're in some sort of therapy or whatever, anything that's working for you, then there's no point in going through the stress of getting a diagnosis. It's only to point you in the right direction. If you're already going in the right direction, then just keep going. You've got therapy that's working. You've got your life. It's not perfect, but it's getting better, especially if it's getting better. Even if it's even keel, it's very disruptive to have a diagnosis. It really is. And I know a lot of people don't do it because they're so afraid of seeing the doctor and having to talk about all the things that you have to talk about. And I totally get that. It's not easy. It's not fun to deal with a brand new mental health worker. Totally get that. So if what you're doing is working, then drop this idea that you need to have a diagnosis and just do whatever's working, and life will get better. And who cares if you don't have an official title? But again, if you're attempting some type of normal therapy and it's not working, and medication isn't working, and you think you're avoidant, and you really are stuck because you can't sort of give yourself permission to go out and try a different type of therapy and figure a new way of living your life. And because it's really, the big thing about the therapy is when you're an avoidant is, one, having anybody to bounce your ideas off of. I had somebody who described it as paid friendship. And the other thing is goal setting, because you can't do it the way that normal people do. You just can't. You can't have the same expectations on yourself. So those are the two really huge things that therapy does for an avoidant person. And, and CBT won't work, and you'll have people, oh, it's so awful. I hear it all the time where people say, well, I tried CBT, but my therapist, she just said I wasn't working hard enough. And it's like, when you're avoidant, just walking through the door is every bit of effort you can make. So don't tell me that you're not trying hard enough. But in that case, maybe you do need to have a diagnosis so that basically you can get your therapist off your back. Or just get a new therapist. But anyway, so that's why I completely, totally believe in these two totally different, opposing sort of paths people can take. You either get a diagnosis or don't. Doesn't matter. What matters is what's beyond that choice, which is figuring a way to live in a way that is tolerable and better and happier for you. And so, just don't stay in that limbo. That's awful. Don't stay there. If you're thinking, maybe I do, maybe I don't, and that's what you're focused on instead of focusing on figuring a way to make your life better, then you got to do something. Don't stay in the limbo. Either get a diagnosis or just don't even think about it anymore, and just live your life one way or the other. Again, if you don't have a diagnosis, you don't have a diagnosis. That's fine. Whatever, you've got something that's going on in your life that's working. That's what you should focus on. Who cares about the actual label? It's not going to help you. It's just going to give you a direction to go forward and try to get better.